From all of the weapon combinations, what are the best endgame builds that dominate in PvP? I will tell you what the builds are, and everything you have to know, from gear, artifacts, skills, and more. Now sit back, relax, and take notes. Hello everyone, Sayphex here. The first build makes use of its endurance, strength to control the front lines and retaliates with piercing strikes. It uses a heavy setup with SNS and Spear. The link to all the builds will be in the description down below. For the weapons, it uses a Venom Spear artifact with Rune Glass Retaliate Gem and Bleeding Sweep as the perk of choice. The spear can be farmed by killing Siren Queen in the Reekwater arena. The second weapon uses SNS with as aggressive perks as possible. I like to use Enchanted, Keen Speed, and Keen for maximum staking potential. I combine it with a Tower Shield, giving us a maximum protection and fortify when using a shield rush. When it comes to the skill trees, I would use something like this. Use Sweep and Cyclone as your main burst when enemy gets too close while using your spear. On the shield, we need Mobility with Leaping Strike and CC with Shield Rush and Shield Bash to make our enemy's combat a living hell. Now let's move to the other gear. Because we're in heavy and on the front lines, I like to focus on the following perks. Shirking Fortification gives us armor every time we dodge an attack, health for overall boost of endurance, and then other perks such as Slash and Thrust Conditioning with a combination of elemental damage resistant gems give us a solid overall protection against all of the damage. So the gear will look something like this. For the helmet, I absolutely adore Revenant Earth, giving us every perk that we need, and it can be crafted with Lazarus materia. For the chest, we use the new heavy artifact, the Survivor's Coat, giving us much needed help when we drop below 50% HP. It can be bought from Well of Fortunes in Cutlass Keys using Mystic Doubloons from the PvP island. For the gloves and legs, I did not find any good named gear, so you have to find something similar or you can craft the gear yourself. For the boots, I have found amazing Stone Soul named gear. This one fits perfectly with our build, and it can also be crafted with Lazarus materia, just like our helmet. Now let's move to the jewelry. For the amulet, I love Passage of Time. It's a solid choice for any build in the front lines. The ring is a lot trickier though, because there's no good named rings, so crafting it will be your only option if you don't want too much magnify in your build. Lastly, we will use the Endless Thirst artifact. This one fits very well with our Survivor's Coat, giving us a very strong potion each time we get a proc from the Survivor's Coat. When it comes to heart rooms, you can pick Grasping Vines for the battle control, or if you're feeling cheeky like I do, you can pick the cannon for the single target burst. So the combo could look something like this. You would bash the enemy, and then you would use a shield bash to stun them, walking behind them while they stand, and then critting with the cannon for a lot of damage. When it comes to tributes, you can be more offensive with 350 strength and 250 con, or you can have a more balanced approach with 300 strength and 300 con. The choice is yours. For the food, we use strength or con food, whatever suits your needs. Overall, the build provides you with a lot of defense, mobility, and crowd control. The second builds make use of its mobility and fire damage to burn their enemies to ash. It uses a light setup with Fire Staff and Rapier. As my main weapon of choice, you have a lot of flexibility, but I picked the Inferno Fire Staff as our main weapon because we would like to be up close using our flamethrower. You can farm the Inferno in the Imperium Forge in the mutated version. For the other weapon, I like to use Rapier, as this one gives us a lot of defensive mobility when we need it. I like to use the following perks to suit our combat style with as much flame damage as possible. I like to use Ignited Conversion Gem with Flame Attunement, Enchanted for the final kills, and Keen Speed to get in and out of combat as soon as possible. When it comes to skills, I would use something like this. On a Fire Staff, I would use Fireball for the burst potential. I would use Flamethrower for the dot effect, because this is our main skill of choice. And I would use Burnout with the explosion at the end, because I would like to zap in and out of combat trying to engage. I also like to use Rune of Helios, giving us 20% in power when we stand inside it. On the Rapier, I like to use as much mobility as possible. I like to use Flash going inside the combat or trying to catch someone off guard. I also like to use Evade, getting us some defensibility or movability, zipping in and out of combat, and just in case, I like to use Riposte for a defensive block. When it comes to our perks of choice, I like to cap, making 4 stacks of Refreshing. Then I like to use Health, Conditioning, and Shirking Heals. So our gear looks like this. Again, we use Reverent Earth because I believe this is one of the best helmets possible you can get in game, because you get Health, Trust, and Shirking Heals as our perk of choice. Secondly, I like to use the artifact Featherweight, giving us the most overall resistances when we are in a light loadout. This can be achieved by picking 2 more heavy gear armors, and overall you'll get a lot more armor than you would with any other gear. This artifact can be found in Elysian Wilds from an NPC named Ner Moor. For the other gear, I like to use Empress Zhao's Embroidered Claws, giving us health, refreshing, and shirking heals. Secondly, I like to find something similar to the legs that I have chosen, using Conditioning, shirking heals, and health. For the final boots, I found a very solid choice with Chardy's foot wraps. This is heavy footwear that give us Conditioning, refreshing, and shirking heals as our third perk of choice. Then let's move to the jewelry. The jewelry I picked for the amulet, I picked the artifact called Phoenix. When we die, Phoenix gives us a chance to revive again to avoid death. So it basically puts us back to 100% health. However, we're taking a damage every second until we either die or get another kill. This is very good because if we're in a combat situation and we are about to die, we know we'll revive, being a lot more aggressive, while the enemy will be caught on a wrong foot. Also, the gear itself gives us Purify perk, Stamina Recovery, and health for overall defensiveness. For the ring, I love Fiery Force, giving us Intelligence, Hearty, Burning, and Fire damage. This fits very well with our build, and I just love this ring. For the earring, I like to pick Mammoth's Revenge, giving us Nimble, Healthy Toast for some health regeneration when we drink mana potions, which we will because we use a lot of mana, and will give us a nice stack of refreshing. When it comes to food, I like using intelligence-based food, and when it comes to attributes, I like to go at least 150 in Constitution, and the rest will go into Int, giving us as much damage as possible on our Fire Staff. When it comes to our Heart Rune of choice, I love using the Brutal Heart Rune of Detonate. This is usually used to engage combat. Basically, you stay at a safe distance, press the Detonate, and then you zoom in with Burnout for a big explosion with Heat Up and Detonate. starting a combat with a big chunk of burst on our enemies. Overall, the build uses fire, a lot of damage, and a lot of mobility, making it one of the staples in builds in PvP. The third build uses single target damage, a lot of mobility, and overall it uses a light setup with musket and yet again rapier for its amazing mobility. When it comes to weapons, first I would like to point out the rapier, as it's our artifact of choice. It's called the Finisher. The Finisher gives us more damage, 15%, to a bleeding target. Plus, it has a lot of perks when it comes to Deadly Flourish and Keen Tondo. And as our third perk, I like to use Keen Speed, again, for zipping in and out of combat. The Finisher itself couldn't be farmed in Elysian Wilds in the Elite Zone. For our musket of choice, the perks that you have to focus on are Keenly Jagged for the bleed. I like to use Enchanted because all of the damage is based on light attacks. And I like to use Powder Burn for the slow because it works well with our perks. Also, I like to use the Arcane Conversion Gem for as much magic damage as possible, as this will be used as well on our Finisher. When it comes to the skill trees, Musket uses Powder Burn, Shooter Stance, and Traps. You can make it a bit different. You can probably swap Shooter Stance for Powder Shot, but this is your choice. When it comes to Rapier, it uses exact setup as with the Fire Staff, with the Flash, Evade, and Riposte for maximum mobility and defense. When it comes to the perks, we are again in light setup, and the build is the same or very similar to the Fire Staff because the gear itself is made in such a way that you're still in light setup for maximum damage, and you would like to have as much defense as possible. So here I like to use 2 stacks of Refreshing, Health, Slash Conditioning, Thrust Conditioning, and Shirking Heals. So the gear looks similar to the previous one. The helmet is Revenant Earth, Featherweight as our chest artifact, giving us the most overall protection. Then for the hands, we use a different one. I like to use Health, Thrust Conditioning, and Shirking Heals. I did not find any good named gloves, but try to find something similar or craft such an artifact, such an item yourself. Secondly, I like to use the legs with Slash Conditioning, Shirking Heals, and Health. It's a similar thing with the gloves. For the foot, I did not find any good named gear. The Chardis I didn't like because you don't need Refreshing. You need Health, Slash Conditioning, and again, Shirking Heals for the maximum healing. You have a lot of artifact options to go with this build, but overall, this one for a light setup gives us the most defense, which is always nice. When it comes to the jewelry, you have the same Phoenix. Because you're very offensive, you want to kill people, you will be in a duel, and with it you can play a lot more aggressively. I just like to use Phoenix. Secondly, for the ring of choice, it's different from the Fire Staff build. It makes use of Bloodletting, Hearty, and Thrust damage. You could go Arcane damage, but I just prefer Thrust damage. When it comes to Bloodletting, it works perfectly with Keenly Jagged and the Bleed Rapier. Red Hot Slag named ring fits perfectly. When it comes to the earring, I found a very solid named ring, which is very easy to get. It has regenerating, which is always nice. You actually have a healing heart rune for the healing, and you have refreshing because it's always nice to have a bit of it. So, now let's move to the other parts. When it comes to the heart rune, I like using Stalwart Heart Rune of Stoneform. This one gives us 45 on activation and it heals us per second while it's being active. Now, this is our oh shit button, I need to heal up fast. So basically you have 2 healing buttons, the Stalwart Heart Rune and the Phoenix, giving us a lot of choices to be aggressive all the time. When it comes to the attributes, I like to have a mix of everything. Now, the main focus will be intelligence, because I believe, in my opinion, that if you go int route instead of a dex route, you would have more damage with your musket than with dex. You can have a different attributes. You could go in more a dex route, but I prefer intelligence because I believe the perks are a lot more offensive, or they provide a lot more damage compared to dex. That's why we use Arcana conversion gems to have a lot more damage with our musket. So the attributes looks like this. I like 25 strength for light attack damage. Then we use as much dex as it's left. We use at least 300 int, and we use at least 150 con for a bit of protection. When it comes to our foods, I like int food because I would like to max intelligence. Overall, the musket build is very strong as it has a lot of single target damage, and it has a lot of mobility, staying safe from the distance and being able to swiftly and easily escape from its melee predators. These are 3 of my favorite endgame PvP builds that I believe will define the meta in the months to come. If you have found this video valuable and liked it, then give it a like and subscribe for more, as in the future I will release a similar build video type but for PvE DPS. Now, have a great day and goodbye.